In the G5 Hive, we always wanting more. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. So raise your flags high, let them wave in the air. In the G5 Hive, we the squad that's rare. With heart and grit, we rewriting the script. In the world of college football, we the ones they can't skip. Yeah. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive.
Yo.
From the mountains to the coast, we gon'
I didn't, it's probably the only way we can talk to this live right now.
Just trying to get my mic set up. I'm gonna try to do something a little different for this one.
Hey dude, I can hear you. You need to mute your mic.
That heart and we never dread. Late hits and big plays, we bring in the heat. Watch out for the G5, we can't be beat. From the MAC to the Sun Belt, we don't back down. In this football jungle, we wear the crown. All the doubt is sleeping, but we making noise. In the G5 Hive, we the realest boys. When the clock's ticking down, we the ones to believe. One play, one chance, we gon' make them achieve. From the sidelines to the end zone, hear that roar. In the G5 Hive, we always wanting more. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. So raise your flags high, let them wave in the air. In the G5 Hive, we the squad that's rare. With heart and grit, we rewriting the script. In the world of college football, we the ones they can't skip. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. We the ones they are. We the ones they can't skip. Fighting for respect, it's a tough road ahead. But we pack that heart and we never dread. Late hits and big plays, we bring in the heat. Watch out for the G5, we can't be beat. From the MAC to the Sun Belt, we don't back down. In this football jungle, we wear the crown. All the doubt is sleeping, but we making noise. In the G5 Hive, we the realest boys. When the clock's ticking down, we the ones that believe. One play, one chance, we gon' make them achieve. From the sidelines to the end zone, hear that roar. In the G5 Hive, we always wanting more. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. So raise your flags high, let them wave in the air. In the G5 Hive, we the squad that's rare. With heart and grit, we rewriting the script. In the world of college football, we the ones that can't skip.
Gets out of a tackle, now turns on the Jets, up to the 30, the 20, 10, 5, Torrey Horton back to the end zone.
48-yard play, guess who? Body, up the middle, making another move, to the outside, 15, 10, end zone again.
Keeps it, nice move by Brown, he's got space, he's got 6. 35-yard touchdown for Byron Brown, a record-setting night for the South Florida quarterback.
Down so far, a little bit of a high snap. Genty right up the middle. Genty has room. Ashton Genty, give him 6.
Second and long. Lagar tries to pin it in. Ramos, it does. Ramos stays up. The shot off his 4-3 wheels. Incredible effort for Ramos.
The G5 Hive. All G5, all the time.
Welcome to the G5 Hive Live, and we are excited to bring you another G5 college football coverage you love each and every week. I am Luke Probasco. I'm joined by my co-host, Justice. We got a new song. We got some gear here. I got a new camera. Merchandise store will be available soon. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you're watching us on X, please give us a follow, a like, and a retweet. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. You're going to want to check out that intro, that new song that we got. And again, you're going to want to check out the merchandise, and that will be coming soon to you if you would like it. Justice, how's it going?
Going great, man. I'm pretty hyped, man. I love the song. I love the we've done a lot of graphics work this year. So hopefully everyone enjoys it. Hope folks enjoy the song, enjoyed the little video that play with it featuring our players of the week this week. Like you said, merchandise store coming up soon. We got Luke and I ordered some hats, and these hats won't be available on the merchandise store, but other great merchandise will be available. So yeah, man, exciting things, exciting stuff coming, and just looking forward to talking some college football, man.
Well, I mean, should we just get right into it?
Sure.
We got the freshman of the week. Again, I like to take the offense. Justice is a defensive guy. Again, running back, Fluff Bothwell, South Alabama. He rushed for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns to lead the Jaguars in a win over App State. That's back-to-back 102 touchdown performances. South Alabama is currently 9th in the nation in points per game, averaging 48.2. Obviously, have a little increase. Was it 2 weeks ago when they put up like 80? So that's inflated just a little bit. but they're averaging 34 rush attempts, 32 pass attempts per game. Nice 50-50 split. But this 1-2 punch of Fluff and Bullock has been good for the Jaguars, especially in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, he just look, man, it's clear to me he's the best running back on the field. Hopefully we'll see him get some more carries, man, and maybe get a start. He hasn't started yet, but sometimes it's not who starts, it's who finishes, right? And Fluff's definitely been a finisher for the Jaguars. All right, the freshman defensive player of the week, just like our offense, back-to-back repeats, 2 consecutive weeks for these guys. But hey, they deserve it. Luke and I talked about it, and there just aren't any other freshmen performing to the level that these 2 guys are. But our defensive freshman of the week is once again safety C.J. Hurd from Florida Atlantic. This week he had 12 tackles, 9 of which were solo, to lead that Owls defense in week 4. CJ has been a shining star and a bright spot for the Owls and what's been a disappointing 2024 season so far. But CJ certainly gives them a young star to build upon in the future. And just want to shout out Robbie Listella and Christian Prussia for hooking us up with this the in-game photo of CJ. I didn't have one. I hit those guys up this morning. They sent me were very quick to send me a photo. So kudos to them.
All right. Offensive player of the week. I picked none other than Blake Horvath. Navy propelled the midshipman past Memphis with his big game, 9 for 12 passing for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns in the air. And then he ran 12 times for a whopping 211 yards and 4 touchdowns, accounting for 6 touchdowns on the day in a big 56-44 win, just like we all expected. Memphis to go down to Navy 56-44. We all expected something like that. So that was quite the game. It was just, it's hard to prepare for that triple option. It's hard to do 12 runs for 211 yards, but he was able to do that. It's pretty efficient. Memphis defense had a hard time catching up, and it was like every time Memphis came back, midshipmen struck pretty quick. It was a pretty exciting and entertaining game to watch.
All right, for my offensive player of the week, I too went with a quarterback, Alonzo Barnett III for James Madison. He passed for 388 yards, 5 touchdowns, rushed for another 99 yards and 2 more touchdowns, 7 total touchdowns to lead the Dukes to a victory over P4 North Carolina from the ACC. I mean, they just stomped a mud hole in Carolina, man. They scored more points by halftime than Carolina scored the entire game. They dropped 70 on the Tar Heels, and man, just an awesome victory for the G5. Great victory for the Sun Belt as well. And Alonzo Barnett had his coming out party, man. Just I guess 2 weeks ago, JMU was losing or about to lose to Gardner Webb. They were struggling against Gardner Webb, and then 2 weeks later, they had a bye week in between, and they certainly took that bye week to heart, got things right, and they just came out here and absolutely dominated the Tar Heels in every aspect of the game. So great win to Alonzo and the Dukes.
Yeah, word on the street is Alonzo was maybe getting recruited for the UNC basketball team. They saw how many points he put up, and they're going to try to recruit him at basketball. That's what I heard.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that final score, you think it was a basketball game and not a college football game for sure. All right, well, let's talk some defense now. So my defensive player of the week is linebacker Colin Ramos from Navy. In that big win over Memphis, Colin had 20 tackles, 6 solo tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss, and a pass breakup to lead the midshipmen in that big victory over Memphis in week 4. Colin's kind of the leader on that defense, the man in the middle. He's had an excellent season so far, and he was a big reason for Navy getting that huge win this week in week 4.
And then I took another repeat guy, Sean Dolek, Buffalo. 19 tackles, 15 solo, 4.5 tackles for losses, 1 pass deflection, 1 INT. Then he took that interception. He ran it back 53 yards. That interception led Buffalo to a field goal that put them up 3. The defense holds NIU to a field goal. They head to overtime, and they kick a field goal in overtime to beat NIU, number 25 NIU, 23-20. Sean Dolak, that interception was huge in that game. Again, I picked him last week, and I have an honorable mention this week because I was going to go with somebody else, but then I was like, you know what? That 19 tackles and INT were big for Sean Dolak. I have an honorable mention that I do want to bring up, and that's Taekwon King. Temple, he was a linebacker, 13 tackles, 5 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and a 45-29 Temple win over Utah State. The things I liked about King is that defense. The first offense put up 45 points, but then that defense was able to keep Utah State, which has been known to move the ball pretty well. They have Spencer Petras coming back from injury. They had a couple guys 2 weeks ago that went out, and then Royals came back this week, and Taekwon King really helped step up for this defense to help the Owls win against Utah State. So my honorable mention. Well,
all right. Thanks, Billy. Glad you like the new tune, man. We kind of like it too. We're still trying to tweak it a little bit, but that was that's the best version we've gotten so far. So we wanted to play that for you guys tonight. So let's get to the news and notes that everyone needs to know. And we're going to start off with the top 25. So the G5 in the AP top 25, with that loss to Buffalo, Northern Illinois falls out of the top 25 rankings. However, they make room for Boise State. Boise State makes its debut in the AP top 25 at number 25. Long overdue for the Broncos, and glad to see them finally be ranked. Others that received votes this week, UNLV would have been number 29. Should be know they were also number 29 last week. They did not play last week, so they didn't gain any ground, didn't lose any ground. James Madison got some votes with that big win over North Carolina. They would have been number 33. Liberty continue to get votes. They're still at number 35. And then Navy with that big win over Memphis also got a vote. They come in at number 40. Looking at the top 25 this week, last week I had some heartburn. I think Luke did too, in terms of teams that maybe shouldn't really be there. Nebraska, I think, was one that we talked about. Kansas State, man, they got absolutely destroyed by BYU, but they stay ranked. BYU jumped in. They weren't ranked. BYU was one of 2 teams to come in that wasn't ranked last week, and the other was obviously Boise State. I don't know. Like, again, I don't know that Kansas State's all that great. I'm not a Notre Dame's, I don't think they've looked great either. But that's just what's going to happen, right? The media is going to vote for those power conferences, those power teams. Not a lot of love for the G5. BYU is 4-0. They beat Kansas State, but I don't think Kansas State's very good. I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting to see how BYU does the rest of the way. The same with Kansas State. Kansas State does not look good. But I don't know that BYU is a top 25 team either. But they got the benefit of playing a number 13 team and beating them.
A team that's not receiving votes that I think should be receiving votes and maybe even above Navy, that's Army. Army not getting any votes. I get it. They don't have, a notable win, but that Army Navy game is going to be a good one. But I mean, it's hard right now to say who's better right now, Army or Navy, but Navy's the one receiving votes. But I think
that's
Army
because and they only got one vote. But that was the big that big win over Memphis that did it for them. Northern Illinois dropped out of the top 25, as did Nebraska, who lost to Illinois. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like some more G5s.
The fact that SMU is getting 2 votes is beyond me. Like, it's like, okay, you're part of the ACC now, so you get 2 votes. That one is wild to me.
I mean, Nebraska still got 25 votes. Boston College got 55. Indiana got 63. Indiana's undefeated, but they haven't really played anybody.
Yeah.
It's just the way it goes, right? The majority of folks that vote in this, I feel like, don't pay attention to the G5. They pay attention to the Power Four, and the voting kind of shows that. But you know what? We've got a cure for that. We've got Hero Sports puts together a G5 top 25 poll. We are voters in this poll. We submit our top 25s every Sunday evening, and we haven't talked about this since the preseason. So I thought it was a good time to kind of talk about it, and talk about how the G5 teams are shaking out. This is the results you see on the screen if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter. That's the Hero Sports top 25 poll. Not necessarily doesn't match our votes. The things that kind of stood out to me is kind of different from what we're thinking. Number one, I think Luke and I are a little more, I don't know if conservative is the right word, right? I think we take a bigger picture and not like what just happened yesterday kind of look. And we're not as reactionary maybe, or as quick to react. We are more like let's take a wait and see kind of approach, especially when you're in the non-conference, right? Because these teams play wildly or vastly different levels of competition. So I think maybe we're a little more conservative in a lot of aspects than probably the majority of the voters. For instance, like probably the biggest difference for us and what's on this poll is JMU. Like we don't have JMU I don't even think we have JMU in our top 10. And it's not to say that JMU isn't good, but they look dynamite against UNC, no doubt. But 2 weeks ago they almost lost to Gardner-Webb. So we take a little more cautious and wait and see approach. The other one I think that's probably the other biggest difference for us is Bowling Green. We're higher than consensus on Bowling Green. We had Bowling Green in our top 10. The consensus has them at number 15. Anything stand out to you, Luke, that's kind of different than our thoughts? Or
I was gonna pull up what ours was. I guess while I'm doing that, if you want to run through what our top 10 votes were, I can.
So yeah, our top 10. Number 1, Boise State. Number 2, UNLV. Number 3, Memphis. Number 4, Tulane. Number 5, Texas State. Number 6, Fresno State. Number 7, Toledo. Number 8, Liberty. Number 9, South Florida. And rounding out the top 10 was Bowling Green. So, I mean, I guess the ones we have higher than everyone else is South Florida and Bowling Green. We have JMU lower. We have Navy lower. Other than that, we're fairly close to what everyone else has as the top 10.
Yeah, I guess we don't have Georgia State in there, which Georgia State there makes there at 23. We don't have Buffalo. Let's see here. We're higher than consensus on South Alabama. We have South Alabama at 15. San Jose we have at 11. They're at 16 there. Army they have at 12, which we do like Army. We have Army at 16. So we're around.
There's a few differences.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is shout out to Hero Sports and Colton who put this together every week, and all the voters in this. It's just kind of cool to be a part of it, and we're thankful for the opportunity. So thank you, Hero Sports and Colton. All right, getting on to some other news. The topic of the day on Twitter, man, like and like I've had to change these notes probably 20 times in the last 5 hours, because it's kind of, and it's probably changed since we started tonight. But the Pac-12, man, the Pac-12, the Mountain West, the American, and this kind of who's going where kind of roulette of conference realignment has been hopping today. The Mountain West has been pushing to keep its remaining members. Kind of the first thing that broke today was the Mountain West telling their members that have not left, the 8 members, that they're going to offer them a large one-time payment of guaranteed money from those exit fees that they're getting from the 4 teams that are leaving, plus what the Pac-12 has to pay them for stealing those 4 teams. So it's more than $120 million in exit fees there that the Mountain West will be getting, and they plan to, you give that money to the institutions to entice them to stay in the Mountain West. We'll see if that works. We already know. We'll get to it here, but we already know one team has already left. It was being reported that Memphis, Tulane, and South Florida, they all had offers to join the Pac-12. They have all declined those offers. And it should be noted that any AAC team that is looking to go to the Pac-12 could face an exit fee of nearly $27.5 million per school. That's a rather large chunk of change. So Memphis, Tulane, and South Florida reaffirmed their commitments to the American today. So after that happened, the Pac-12 was turning its attention to UNLV, Utah State, Air Force, and Gonzaga in basketball only, and supposedly UConn for football only. Also should be noted that the AAC is looking at Air Force, right? Makes sense for them. They would want Air Force to join forces with Army and Navy, kind of get all 3 academies in the same conference. But this happened earlier today, but my understanding is it's not written in stone now because of Utah State, but Air Force and UNLV reaffirmed their commitment to stay in the Mountain West. There was going to be an agreement, and all 8 members had to sign that. Well, Utah State got offered that spot, and Utah State said, we're leaving. And so now that agreement's out the window. And so, Air Force and UNLV kind of still up in the air, I guess. Utah State, like I said, that they accepted that offer. UNLV was set to announce they were going to stay. And then I think after that Utah State announcement that they're leaving, I believe UNLV is kind of reevaluating things, kind of see what they want to do. But man, it's just crazy times out there. In conference realignment,
Who would have thought, honestly, that Utah State was going to be this pivot point? Because right now you need 8 teams in a conference. You got the Pac-12 with 7 teams right now. Now you have the Mountain West with 7 teams. So what's going to happen? And yeah, who knew it was going to be Utah State as that pivotal team to get people thinking about which conference to go to?
It almost seems to me at this point, like, why wouldn't the Pac-12 just assume all of the Mountain West? Just take them all, right? Then they don't have to pay those exit fees. They don't have to pay those penalties, right? I mean, I understand the play to try to get the American teams, right? To try to get the big dogs in the G5, so to speak. I understand that play. That play didn't work out. To me, like, at this point,
maybe they might.
I mean, that's just like from a financial perspective, I just don't understand why they wouldn't, right? Because if the Pac-12 takes every Mountain West team, then they don't owe the Mountain West anything, right? Like, and there's not going to be any exit fees because there's not going to be any conference. And so it just seems to me like the Pac-12 should just take all, at least offer them all, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if Air Force wants to go to the American, hey, you offered them. There is no other Mountain West, so I think you've held up your end of the bargain, and you're not getting hit with all those fees. Yeah, I think I don't know that just to me from a pure financial standpoint, like that just seems like where that's the thing that makes the most sense is that the Pac-12 just absorbs the Mountain West.
Well,
But
Justice, that's why you and I are doing a podcast on a Monday night after I put my kids to bed, because what do we know?
right, absolutely. Like it's just crazy, man. Very, very, very crazy. Um, I'm a little bit selfishly, I'm a little bit disappointed that the American teams reaffirm their commitment because what I was selfishly hoping was those guys would leave and then other folks are going to be looking to jump ship and that the Sun Belt could add at least East Carolina. East
No,
Carolina would be
you-
East Carolina
you
would
and
be
East
such a it'd be such a perfect fit for the Sun Belt, man. Um, and so that's what I was selfishly hoping for. But yeah, that's not going to happen. Not anytime soon, anyway. I'm sure, like Memphis and Tulane in South Florida, they're probably waiting for the ACC dominoes to drop and get those ACC invites when some of the ACC teams leave there. But yeah, stay tuned because, like I said, I'm sure it's changed a lot in the last 30 minutes and it'll change more over the course of next week. But we'll bring you back up to speed in this soap opera, if you will, next week. Moving on to some like super positive and great news, man, that happened last week. We talked about both of these gentlemen on a few occasions off and during the off season. They were both for fighting battles with cancer, and they both shared some pretty awesome news this past week. And that's Troy wide receiver Chris Lewis. He had been battling cancer. He had a GoFundMe that we shared a couple times, and but last week he announced that he is cancer free. That's amen to that, brother. That's awesome. And then Troy beat writer and a friend of the show we've had on the show before, Josh Boutwell. He announced last week that he has no signs of cancer at the moment and that his recovery from his surgery is close to 100%. So Josh and Chris, man, awesome news. Thanks for sharing that. And we've been thinking about both of you guys and just so happy to kind of hear that.
Yeah, great news for Troy. Congratulations, Chris and Josh, for the been a long road, and it's tough mentally, and just congratulations.
All right, getting into some player news. Wide receiver Anthony Simpson from UMass is no longer with the team. I have not seen any statement from him. I looked on his Twitter. I didn't try and find his Instagram. My guess, just a pure guess on my part, is he's planning on transferring. You can play four. Well, he didn't play any games, I don't think, this year, or maybe he only played like one or two. But you're allowed to play up to 4 games, preserve a redshirt year, and so my gut tells me that's what Anthony Simpson's doing. He things weren't going the way he wanted, and he's like, I'm gonna preserve my year of eligibility, and so he's no longer with the UMass football team. The same thing for wide receiver Balin Brooks, San Diego State. He left the team this week, and it was reported that he left the team for that exact reason, to preserve his red shirt, not burn a year of eligibility. So he will be in the portal when that opens up again come December. All right, moving on to some injury news. East Carolina had a big loss last week. Cornerback Siobhan Ravel Jr. Out for the season with an ACL injury he suffered in practice last week. That's a huge loss for the Pirates. Their defense is pretty good, and Siobhan was a lockdown corner. He was someone that was being talked about as possible a day one NFL draft pick. So that's going to be a huge loss for the Pirates. Also, New Mexico State quarterback Deuce Hogan will miss the rest of the season with a collarbone injury. New Mexico State had a lot of personnel change this year and at quarterback, and so losing Deuce is not going to be a positive thing for them. Also on the injury news front, we got some words today from Alex Taylor that Wyoming running back Harrison Whaley is only going to play 4 games this year. Again, he had surgery right before the season on his knee. It wasn't season-ending surgery, but he's decided this is not the way he wants his final year to play out, and so he is only going to play 4 games, but he's not going to play until he's ready. They have not said what 4 games he's going to play in, so we don't know when he's coming back. But he will be playing in no more than 4 games in 2024 to preserve that year of eligibility and return to the Cowboys next year. Moving over to some Memphis player news, running back Greg DeRoziers Jr. is set to miss a couple weeks. So that's going to mean more work for Brandon Thomas and Mario Anderson. Remember, they already lost Sutton Smith for the year. So another loss in that running back room. Wide receivers Kobe Drake and Rock Taylor were banged up in the game against Navy this past week. Something to kind of just monitor, and as we head into this Week 5 game against Middle Tennessee's the Blue Raiders. Temple tight end Landon Morris, he is banged up, but he should not miss any time this week. Troy quarterback Goose Crowder returned, and he returned with a vengeance, man. He played really well for the Trojans this week, and so obviously he should be good to go against UL Monroe. A big game for both those teams coming up here in Week 5. Last week, probably the biggest injury news. At that point we didn't know, but it wasn't looking good in terms of Quentin Cooley, and lo and behold, Quentin Cooley plays this week for Liberty. And so, good news there. He's able, whatever the injury was, he was able to deal with it this week and get back on the field. And, it obviously wasn't as bad as Coach Chadwell thought. So great news there for the Flames and Quentin Cooley. Colorado State wide receiver Torrey Horton did not play in Week 4, and they have a bye this coming week. So hopefully with the multiple weeks off, that we should be able to see Torrey Horton get back on the field there in Week 6 against Oregon State. Kent State quarterback Devin Cargman was carted off the field there in Week 4. No word on what his injury is and what his status looks to be moving ahead. Ohio, Parker Navarro was out for their matchup against Kentucky in Week 4. Hopefully we can see him here in the coming weeks. And then finally, Coastal Carolina running back Braden Bennett missed another week. They do have a bye this week, and the hope is that Braden Bennett will be able to come back after that bye. Running back Javon Simpkins is also still out, and I don't think they're as hopeful that he will be able to return after the bye. And that's going to do it for our injury news and player news. Did you have anything you wanted to add there, Luke?
No. Overall, pretty low key on the injuries in comparison to other weeks. So grateful to make it through a week with little injury news. But there's enough conference realignment stuff to talk about that I'm sure we'll have to talk about every time now going forward.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into the Week 4 in review. What do we got, Luke, there for G5 versus P4?
All right. Well, let's look at this game. We had James Madison versus North Carolina Saturday at noon. JMU wins 70-50. I don't even know what to say. This team struggled to put up like 13 points against,
Gardner
like
Webb.
you said, Gardner Webb, and then here they are putting up 70. So anything you think is possible can happen. I don't know if maybe the Dukes just kind of play up and down to their competition, and they just need to be consistently good throughout the whole thing. Maybe that's what's going on here. I haven't been able to watch a lot of James Madison being here in Iowa, but granted, North Carolina defense not all that great, but yeah, James Madison really put foot in this weekend.
They put their foot in the Tar Heels. I watched that entire game, and and they dominated that game, man. Like every aspect of that game, they dominated. Clearly, they did a great job of using that bye week to get right. So again, kudos to JMU. I'm interested to see how they look this coming week.
Then we had Ohio at Kentucky. Kentucky pulls out the 41-6 win. Arkansas State at Iowa State. Iowa State wins 52-7, and it's been back-to-back weeks. Granted, Michigan and then Iowa State, but Arkansas State pulls starter Jalen Rayner.
Yeah.
So
he did. I watched some of that game. He did not look good.
I mean, there was one, that first interception early in the game, like threw it right to the guy there. I think it was the first one of the game that he had.
And Timmy McClain came in. You know, he looked a little better than Rayner. He obviously played better against Michigan when they put him in at the end. So I don't know, like, you know, we keep hearing that there's no quarterback competition, but at some point, man, like, you got to feel like they got to make a change, right? I mean, how long can you keep hitting your head against a brick wall and expecting different results, right? Doing the same thing over and over again.
It'd be curious to see if Butch Jones waits till like a loss in conference play before he makes that change, or a couple.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can't remember
the eligibility for Timmy McClain. I mean, obviously you got.
Well, he was a true freshman last year. He was a true freshman.
So, I mean,
he burned his year last year. So he's played in 4 games now, and so he plays another game, he's burned another year. Yeah,
you got 2 young quarterbacks, so it's interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, like, if he plays those games with him, right? If he announces him as the starter for week 5, and he's burned a year of eligibility, and so I don't know. You know, we saw MJ Morris.
As weird as it sounds, it's almost like Arkansas State is like the equivalent to the Michigan, where you got 2 quarterbacks. You know, one's more of a pocket passer, one's more of a rusher. Not to say that that's what it is for Arkansas State, but it's like, hey, just pick one, and then, you know, build around that. And, you know, both kind of mobile quarterbacks, so you don't have to worry about that. But it is, you know, you would like to see them, like, so far they've stuck with Rayner, but you'd like to see, you know, if they do make that change, that they, you know, probably hold a competitive advantage. Let's not tip our hand or whatnot. But if they do make that switch, then it's like, okay, Rayner needs to transfer type thing.
Well, I'm sure that's the fear, right? If they do make the switch, that's what's holding. I would assume that's part of the decision. If they make the switch, then they're probably got to assume that Rayner is in the portal. Yeah, especially if he's already played the 4 games, right? If they make the switch now, after week 5, maybe that'll tell us more in terms of what maybe's going on. But I don't know. We'll see.
Then we had Virginia at Coastal Carolina. Virginia wins this one 43-24. I watched a very little bit of it. Didn't get enough to catch the vibes of it. Justice, were you able to lay eyes on this one at all?
I did not. I did not. It just didn't look like Vasco and Coastal Carolina kind of played well, just looking at the statistics, but I did not get to watch any of that game.
Then you had Miami of Ohio at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is able to beat this MAC opponent. Notre Dame wins 28-3. Obviously did not put – I mean, it was actually pretty close in that first half in comparison to maybe, you know, what perceived thoughts you might have of what it should look like. And then Miami at South Florida, a really good game at halftime. And then the second half was all Hurricanes as Miami wins 50-15 against South Florida.
Yeah, South Florida. I don't know. They don't. I mean, they played some tough competition, right? Miami and Alabama are two of the better teams in all of college football. But I certainly would have thought they would have looked better than they did in those 2 games.
All right, let's move over to our G5 versus G5. We've got South Alabama at App State. That happened on Thursday. South Alabama wins 48-14.
Man,
and I mean, there's 2 things. There's 2 things that I want to talk about here. You got South Alabama just laying wood to everybody. They're just scoring so many points. I'm really excited for this upcoming week when they play LSU, assuming they play all their starters. They don't rest anybody. It's thinking that, we're going to save people because that LSU defense isn't great. So that one I'm excited about. But then App State, it's been like the disappointment of App State. Joey Aguilar didn't look all that great. There's some drop passes. Caden Robinson's still looking for his first touchdown of the year. But he puts up solid stats each and every week. This App State defense just isn't kind of what I thought it would be. Really excited preseason for this coming week. App State versus Liberty. This is going to determine a lot of the playoffs seeding, and it's going to be rough. Like this isn't as great of a matchup as I thought it would be. But yeah, I mean, it's a tale of two teams going in two opposite directions so far.
It was a shocker, man. That App State offensive line is just not good. They were able to get pressure on Joey all night, and the App State they didn't have any answers for the South Alabama pass rush, and they didn't have any answers on defense for the South Alabama offense. Last year App State made a mid-season switch and really turned that defense around. So interested to kind of see if they can't figure things out here and maybe change schemes once again and kind of find some answers, because this App State team is not anywhere near what at least what I expected them to be, right? I thought they were one of a top 5 team in all of G5, and they're not even a top 5 team in the Sun Belt, much less the entire G5. So yeah, super impressed with South Alabama, Gio Lopez, and that running game, man. They look really strong.
And then, like Billy Tuesday says here in the chat, we had San Jose State at Washington State on Friday. This honestly might have been the best game of the whole weekend.
The game of the year, probably. One of the games of the year, maybe.
If you were able to stay up and watch this, little defense played, throwing the ball around the yard a lot. Washington State wins 54-52.
You had fake punts. You had 2 fake punts. You had onside kicks. Not like in obvious situations, man. It was went to what, double overtime?
San Jose State did San Jose State did the onside kick, right? And that was like
yep. And that was like in the first.
It was like the second. Yeah, it was like it was very, very early in the game.
And they got it.
Yep.
And then they both did back-to-back fake punts.
I think it was like 7-7 when they did the
it was onside. Early in the game. And then the fake punts, Washington State's fake punt didn't work. San Jose State's fake punt did work. It was just a fun game, man. A lot of offense. And then you get to overtime and they both throw interceptions on their first possession. I was like, San Jose State had the ball first.
And then they threw the interception. And
then I'm like, well, Washington State has to kick a field goal. So you figure, they're just going to run the ball a couple times, right? Oh no. They try to get a touchdown, and they threw an interception. I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? It was just crazy, man. It was crazy. Mayhem. Offensive mayhem. Sure. It was, and then, definitely a fun game.
Then we had another game that you were heavily involved in watching. That was Tulane at Louisiana. Tulane wins 41-33. What were your takeaways from there, Justice?
Both teams, I thought, I came away more impressed with Louisiana than I did before the game. I thought they kind of hung in there. Tulane looked good. They did rotate the quarterbacks. They would rotate in Ty Thompson for Darian Mensah, and pretty much every time Ty Thompson came in, you knew he was running the ball. So it was either a short yardage situation, 4th and 1, 3rd and 2, something like that, or first and goal from the 3, they would put Ty Thompson in, and virtually, I think almost every time he ran the ball. And so that was kind of my big takeaway there from Tulane. But Louisiana looked good. Ben Wooldridge had a good game. Terrence Carter had a big game for the Cajuns, and yeah, I came away more impressed with the Cajuns than I had not watched them this year. I didn't have super high expectations. I thought they were kind of just an okay team. But yeah, they both teams looked good. It was a good game.
Then the game that we talked about earlier, we have Memphis at Navy, where Navy wins 56-44. I don't know if there's much more to cover. We talked about players of the weeks. We talked about this game earlier. East Carolina at Liberty, 6 p.m. start, turned into 11 p.m.
11 p.m.
with
start.
weather.
And they didn't end until like 2 a.m.
Yep, we got a Hawaii-type game out there at Liberty, where Liberty wins 35-24.
ECU gave Liberty a game, man. They looked like they were going to win, or had a shot at winning, and then they just kind of towards the end of the game they just kind of fell apart, man. I don't know. Like I'm still not super impressed by Liberty. I don't. ECU has a great defense. I think their offense turns the ball over too much, but it was a great game. Like I said, it didn't end until 2 a.m. for those players, so that had to be kind of crazy, right? Getting up for a 6 p.m. game and then you don't get done till 2 a.m.
Well, it's like get up and then like you get all stretched, and then you have the weather delay, and then you have to get up again, and then the whole flight back.
Yeah. Well, they probably didn't. My guess is they didn't fly. Greenville's close enough; they bust. Would be my guess.
Yeah. And then we have Buffalo at Northern Illinois. We talked about this one where Buffalo wins 23-20 in overtime. Toledo at Western Kentucky. I got to watch a little bit of this game.
Yes.
Western Kentucky wins 26-21. This was just a good game. More defensive than it was an offensive shootout. Thought, that Tucker Gleason might, toss the ball all around the yard, have Veltkamp toss the ball all over the yard. And, these defenses came ready to play.
Yeah, and Tucker had a couple just terrible interceptions, man. I thought Toledo looked like the better team, but they didn't win. The turnovers there at the end kind of killed them.
All right. Then we've got Fresno State at New Mexico Saturday. Fresno State wins this one 38-21. Something I did not mention in the injury section that I didn't put in that injury section for you, Justice, and that was the biggest takeaway. Yeah, Malik Sherrod dressed. They showed him plenty of times in jersey, in pads, but he didn't take a snap. They've got UNLV this next week, so sounds like they're trying to keep him fresh for that one. Maybe sounds like he tweaked something in practice. Not exactly sure what it is, but they felt like they could get away with a win at New Mexico. They had him ready to go just in case, but looking forward to UNLV is what it sounds like. Then we've got go ahead.
I was going to say New Mexico. I think they're on the right track. I think Bronco Mendenhall will get them where they need to be. I think they've been better than anyone expected this year. I think there's as long as they can keep Bronco and Devin Dampier, I think there's a bright future ahead for the Lobos.
All right. Looks like we've got about 66 people watching. Can we get some more likes, retweets, get some comments if you're watching us on YouTube? Let's be some interactive here on this show tonight. Let's get into our Week 5 previews. We've got some G5 versus P4 matchups. We've got Northern Illinois at NC State Saturday, noon Eastern. I kind of like this upset alert of NIU. North Carolina State, tough to win in, but North Carolina State just isn't the North Carolina State that it's been previously. Also, you got freshman CJ Bailey starting. This defense pretty good. This is my upset alert game here.
Yeah, I think Northern Illinois plays good defense. They run the ball effectively, and so I think that always is going to give them a chance, right? NC State, like you said, has not looked too good, particularly on offense. I haven't heard if Grayson McCall is going to be available for this game or not, or if they're going to have to start true freshman CJ Bailey again. But even when McCall was in there, he didn't look great. The offense didn't look great. So yeah, I mean, definitely an opportunity for Northern Illinois to knock off another P4 and maybe jump right back into that top 25.
We've got Western Kentucky at Boston College Saturday at noon Eastern. We'll see what Thomas Castellanos can do against Western Kentucky, but if Western Kentucky plays like they did last week, this again, maybe Veltkamp is able to toss the ball a little bit better against Boston College this week. This could be another game that is very much a upset alert as if you're a common football fan. We've got Louisiana at Wake Forest Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, and then South Alabama at LSU Saturday at 7:45. I'm just really hoping to see South Alabama put up a whole bunch of points. Maybe we get 70 points like JMU did at North Carolina. We'll see what Gio's able to do. And see what Fluff is doing.
I'm looking forward to that Louisiana game, man. I think that's another good opportunity for the G5 to get a win. Wake Forest does not look good at all. Louisiana, like I said, I walked away from that Tulane game much more impressed with them, and I think if they play the way they did against Tulane, I think they can beat Wake Forest this week. So, couple opportunities here for the G5. The world's going to get introduced to Gio Lopez. So excited to kind of. I hope he plays lights out, man, and the rest of the world can kind of know what us G5 fans know. How electric Gio Lopez is. Would love to see nothing more than to see him light up those LSU Tigers.
Absolutely. Now let's get into our G5 versus G5 matchups. We've got South Florida at Tulane. That's at noon Eastern. Got Ball State at James Madison, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. We don't have it on there, but yeah, that South Florida versus Tulane game, that'll be a good one.
That
there it is. There it is. I'm not looking at the right one. There it is.
Yeah, we got it up there. That game, that game, should tell us a lot about South Florida, right? I feel like Tulane's looked pretty good. South Florida hasn't, but hopefully, they played some pretty stiff competition. So we'll see how South Florida looks against another AAC foe there in Tulane. And then, I saw a press conference today with Bob Chesney, head coach at JMU, and they were asking him, did he think Ball State was a trap game? And I hope they don't think it's a trap game, because I think Ball State's is one of the better teams in the MAC, and they play like they did against Gardner Webb. They're going to lose to Ball State. Hopefully they won't have too much of a letdown there.
So we didn't talk about the game, but I watched a lot of the Ball State versus Central Michigan, and that was just a wild game. I was texting you about it. It was like Ball State just like controlled the line of scrimmage for a better portion of that first half. Then they get they block a punt, like tip it type thing, not too, doesn't go too far. So they like start off like on their own like 40-yard line. They go for it on a fourth down, don't get it, and then it was just Central Michigan there on out. But Ball State threw the ball pretty well. They ran the ball extremely well. So I think that I think it'll be James Madison throwing the ball, which honestly, what really worked for Central Michigan was they brought in their other quarterback. Why am I blanking on his name?
Bert Emanuel Jr.
Bert Emanuel, and then he just came in and he ran. They just ran the ball a lot. And Central Michigan had another back that had just a couple carries, but he broke like two really big ones. Was it EJ Bailey? Does that sound right?
The running back, BJ Harris.
Yeah. Harris.
Central Michigan, BJ Harris.
So they, maybe Petaway, Ayoadeye's been out. I mean, George Petaway has a big game here, but I think I would try to run the ball on Ball State. And then obviously you got Braden Sloan there. He got a lot of work. And then Tanner Kozoil, obviously, too, got some work. Texas State at Sam Houston, 3 p.m. Eastern.
Texas.
I am excited to watch this one. Sam Houston gets Texas State at home. Texas State kind of been a little up and down, maybe not as explosive as we thought. Jordan McLeod maybe not clicking on all cylinders like we saw. Sam Houston playing pretty good. I expected big things out of Sam Houston, so this is an exciting game that I will try to pay attention to this week.
The passing game seemed to struggle for Sam Houston last week. The running game was dynamite, but the passing game seemed to struggle, and I think they're going to have a passing game against Texas State, I think, to keep up.
Yeah. They're going to need a big game out of Quavez Humphreys this weekend. Then I alluded to it earlier, but we've got Liberty at App State at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. I don't know.
I'm just hoping App State can get right and pull off the upset, man. Like this was a game we've talked about numerous times in the offseason. This was like the game, right? This was when Liberty is supposed to lose.
Yep.
And man, App State has not looked good. I don't think Liberty's looked particularly good either. But they've at least been winning. And yeah, I'm hoping like heck that App State can, if they don't win another game this year, I'm hoping they can win this one.
Then we've got Fresno State at UNLV, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. This one is going to be a good game. We'll see how UNLV does. I don't know. I think I'm going to take Fresno State in this one, even though I have to go to UNLV. Maybe, Fresno State beats UNLV just bad enough that UNLV is like, we got to head to the Pac-12. Not sure. But I just like Mikey Keene. I like what Fresno State's doing. Offense, defense. UNLV just having a hard time throwing the ball. You kind of know that they're kind of one-dimensional. They're going to run the ball. As long as you can stop the run, I think you can beat UNLV, even though they've beat 2 Power 5 opponents.
That UNL defense is legit. And so, yeah, man, this game can go a long way to determining who ends up in that Mountain West Championship game at the end of the year. This is a premier matchup, premier conference matchup early in the season. So definitely one to watch.
Then we've got Georgia Southern at Georgia State at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Battle of Georgia. Georgia State coming off a big win against Vandy. Southern.
Have you seen the scuttlebutt this week about the name? Like, this is a huge rivalry, and it was always called modern day hate. That's kind of how they referred to this rivalry, is modern day hate. And there's been a big scuttlebutt on Twitter about that, and trying to rename it. That they came up with another name for it, and it's Georgia Southern's been pretty quiet on it. Georgia State's been releasing official statements and all this, and I don't know, it's pretty crazy, man. Like you should look at it. Like, it started last week. Forgive me, I can't remember what they changed the name of the game to, but it's essentially always been called modern day hate, and they don't like that. They don't like that terminology. Georgia State's not a fan of that terminology, and so they've come up with some kind of different name. But it's been all over social media for the last week or so.
Okay, one to keep an eye on. We got Tulsa at North Texas at 7 p.m. Eastern. Tulsa with a big win this last week. North Texas getting right with scoring a fair amount of points this last weekend. We'll see. Again, I think Tulsa's just a year away, but we'll see how they handled North Texas. What are your thoughts going into the game?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Tulsa is a team to kind of watch out for in the future. I think they're better than people probably give them credit for, but I don't think they're quite there yet. So I don't know. I think North Texas. I just look for a lot of offense, right? You're going to get a lot of offense out of North Texas. And so we'll see if Kirk Francis and Tulsa can get things going. One thing I've been surprised to this point with North Texas is the heavy running back rotation. I would definitely thought that Anthony Watkins would kind of be the man, but they're rotating quite a bit there, including some true freshmen with Lloyd Avant and Byron Ellison both getting some carries as well for the Hurricanes. But yeah, I think you're right. Tulsa's probably a year away, but they're on the upswing for sure.
And then we got UL Monroe at Troy, 7 p.m. Eastern. Troy been able to put up some points this year. UL Monroe looking solid this year. Going to be a tough one at Troy. This one might be a low-key fun one to watch in the sense of
just a good game.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I think there's going to be more points. I don't know what the over-under is, but I feel like there might be more points than you would think in this one. That's my expert opinion. Hashtag analysis. We got another rivalry game, New Mexico at New Mexico State, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to go with New Mexico, and the Fighting Dampiers are going to win this one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think New Mexico is going to get that win. New Mexico State, like I said, they played tough against Liberty, have not looked good in any other game. Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Lobos are going to get that big rivalry win. The over-under on the UL Monroe Troy game is 45.5, and Troy is favored by 8.
I think I'm going to take the over on that, 45.5.
Yeah, I'm curious. The New Mexico game. New Mexico's favored by 9.5. The total in that game is 58.5. That's one I don't know. I could see going under potentially, and I don't know. I can see it going either way. I guess I don't think either defense is particularly good, but I don't think the New Mexico State offense is particularly good either. So, be interested to see how that game plays out.
I'm gonna expect a lot of Wysong touchdowns in this game. Then we've got Washington State at Boise State, capping off the night, 10 p.m. Eastern. Can Boise State get a win over what the nation considers a P4 team? I'm still not sure what the nation and the media.
I consider them G5.
But I mean, you're going to have Ashton Genty, you're going to have Mateer. It should be a fun game to watch. Maybe not as fun as the San Jose game, but this one should. I don't know.
It might be just as entertaining. Boise's favored by 7.5 in this game, and the over/under 64.5. I can see this game going over. I can see this game going over for sure. But yeah, this is just a great week in G5, man. You got some really, really, I think, really good matchups all across the board. Like, all these matchups are super intriguing. The South Florida Tulane, Ball State JMU, the Fresno State UNLV, Washington State Boise State. Just some great G5 versus G5 games this week, man. Looking forward to it. I'm happy that Old Dominion is an away game, and so that I'm not at Old Dominion tailgating all day, and I miss all these other great games. So I'm happy with this great slate that I'll get to watch a lot of these games.
Yeah, so you are gonna get to watch them. I will probably not. I am actually heading to back to college. I played college baseball. My shortstop is being inducted into the Hall of Fame, so I'm going there Friday night for that, and then we'll be doing tailgating and whatnot at our college football game, and I'm sure going out and whatnot. So I will not get to watch as much games. That's about 4.5 hour drive back for me the next day. So I'm gonna have to do a lot of stat watching and asking a lot of questions probably to you. But let's get into our G5 Hive 2020 guys.
These are the top players in G5. We did decide to make a few tweaks this week on the defensive side of things. We split up defensive linemen into defensive end and defensive tackles. I was just thinking about, the stuff we're using is havoc rate. Well, defensive ends are always going to dominate that stat because they're the ones getting the majority of the pressure. So I figured, hey, we should recognize both sides, and then kind of the same thought process with defensive backs. We split them up between cornerbacks and safeties, and the stat, the advanced metrics we were looking at was adjusted net yards against per coverage snap, and safeties were kind of dominating it. And if you think about it, it's because they play coverage, but they're not playing as many coverage snaps as a cornerback, and so that stat, if you lumped them all together, was kind of favoring the safeties. And so we said, hey, let's split them back up and show some more love to some more players. So there you go.
All right. Well, let's get into the quarterbacks. As always, I handle the offensive side. Justice is going to handle the defensive side. And our quarterbacks, now again, we're looking at our pass attempts and pass yardage. You got to be in the top 20 in both of them to make this list. And I rank these as, just you got probably your yardage first and then pass attempts. Like how sustainable is it to get those pass yards? Are you doing it efficiently? Are you doing it with volume? What does it look like? So at number 1, I have Emmett Brown, San Jose State. He leads the G5 in touchdown tosses with 13. He leads this 2020 group in ADOT, or average depth of target, with 13. Number 2, I have Chandler Morris, North Texas. He has the most completions per game with 25 and is 5th in the G5 in attempts per game with 38. So getting a lot of attempts and you're completing them, which obviously leads to the yardage. We've got Devin Dampier, New Mexico, 2nd in the G5 with big time throws with 11. We should probably see a couple more this weekend. Number 4, Joey Aguilar, kind of took a step back this last week. Didn't look nearly as stellar, but when I'm looking at all the different stats, again, there's something in particular. He just jumps out to you, and there's nothing that jumps out to you in a good way or a bad way. Joey Aguilar is steady Eddie. We've got Seth Hennigan, Memphis, most time to throw of these 2020 guys with 2.81 seconds. That is tied with our number 6 quarterback, Braden Shager, out of Hawaii. Jordan McLeod. Go ahead.
Did you watch the Hawaii game? I don't know if that was a late one too. I watched the first half and I guess I hadn't really paid attention. But they kept saying, "Here comes a Shager bomb." So kind of like all you Jaeger bomb fans out of Hawaii, they got Shager bombs.
Jordan McLeod comes in at number 7 out of Texas State. He has the least amount of big time throws of this 2020 group with 3, which is kind of shocking based off of the Cole Wilson, Joey Hobart. You think of this big pass offense, and not too many big time throws. Then we've got Christian Veer, Georgia State, at number 8. He has the least amount of turnover worthy plays of this 2020 group with a 1. He also has the least amount of time to throw, 2.23 seconds. So you've got not much time to throw, but not many turnover. He's taking care of the ball. Georgia State could be stacking up a couple wins this year that you might not think that they get. Again, this battle here against Georgia Southern should be a good one. Christian Veer, a name to know. Brett Gabbert, Miami of Ohio, comes in at number 9. He has the least amount of completions per game with 19 of these 2020 guys. Despite being 10th in the G5 in attempts, he's only averaging 19 completions. So Brett Gabbert might be a name as we wean on into the year that he might start falling down if he isn't able to get a few more completions per game. But luckily, we've got Maction coming up. Then we've got Jake Garcia coming in at number 10. He leads the G5 in turnover-worthy plays with 11.
No shocker if you've seen him play.
Yeah. Nicholas Vadiato, Middle Tennessee. He comes in at number 11. And then Connor Bazelak, welcome to the 2020 club. Bowling Green, he has the lowest average depth of target of this 2020 group with 5.6. So not pushing it down the field, but Bowling Green, been an exciting team to watch here against Texas A&M, against Penn State. Bowling Green, I know you were high on them coming into the year, and a team to watch here in the MAC.
Yeah, they played my Old Dominion Monarchs this week, so I'll get to watch them even more.
So, yeah, that is our quarterbacks. Now let's get into our running backs. Ashton Jeanty, Boise State, comes in at number 1. Shocker. He leads the G5 in touchdowns, rushing touchdowns with 9. Got Marquez Cooper, San Diego State, 3rd in the G5 in missed tackles forced with 19. Then we've got Mekhi Hughes out of Tulane at number 3. Ontario Brown, Northern Illinois at 4. Ishmael Mahdi, Texas State, coming in at number 5. Number 6, Braden Sloan, Ball State. He is 2nd in the G5 in receptions per game with 4. Then Anthony Tyus out of Ohio comes in at number 7. He leads the G5 in missed tackles forced with 30. However, he has the least amount of rushing attempts of these 2020 guys with only 14 per game. Mario Anderson comes in at number 8 out of Memphis. He is 2nd in the G5 in touchdowns with 7, just trailing by 2 to Ashton Jeanty. We got Rasul Faison. Utah State comes in at number 9. Mario and Raul, new to the 2020 club. Dean Connors, I think, was there week 1 or 2 and then popped out. But Dean Connors comes in at number 10 from Rice. He leads the G5 in receptions with 6 per game. He has 5 touchdowns, which is the 4th most in the G5. However, he has the least amount of touches with 16 out of these 2020 guys. And then coming in at number 11, Jalen Buckley, Western Michigan. He missed, maybe part of it's because he missed a game, but he has the least number of missed tackles forced with 1, and the least amount of yards after contact with 1.25 of these 2020 guys. And he has the least amount of receptions per game from the 2020 guys with 1. So Jalen Buckley squeaks in. We'll see if he missed a game. Who did they play that he took a game off?
I don't remember who it was they played. I know it was Jaden Nixon that kind of led the running back room, but I don't remember who it was that they played. It was against. I think it was against the FCS team. I'm pretty sure.
So he took the week off. Then they had a bye week. So hopefully he comes back. I'm trying to think. They've got a pretty good game this week. Just Western Michigan play.
A couple
Marshall?
of things I wanted to. They play Marshall,
this week.
I don't know
who they play.
Ashton Jeanty, I've seen him a lot on a lot of folks' top 5 for the Heisman. So I'm hopeful that that will stay throughout the year and that Ashton can get that invite to New York. Anthony Tyus was not the leading runner for Ohio this week. That was Ricky Hunt Jr. So we've talked before that they're going to kind of take a hot hand approach, and I guess that this week Ricky Hunt was kind of the better running back on the week. So be interesting to kind of see how that plays out between the two of them this week. And then that touchdown number for Mario Anderson is a little bit surprising, right? Because Brandon Thomas is the goal line back. He was the goal line back last year. He's the goal line back this year. So kind of cool that Mario is still kind of getting quite a number of touchdowns, even though they have a designated goal line back there for the Tigers.
Yeah, and then Rasul had even though they lost there at Temple, had his coming back to home party, and I think he had 2 rushing touchdowns this last week.
Yeah, he's had 100 yards the last 2 weeks. He's been heating up.
So, let's move over to wide receivers. Something to to mention here. We've got Nash, Ashlock, Wysong. They're all with double-digit targets per game. Nash is the Ashton Genty of the wide receiver group here, just killing it. All the guys here are averaging 6 receptions or more per game and 70-plus yards per game. So if you're playing fantasy college football, that's 13 points, PPR points, at least from this group here. We've got Nick Nash, San Jose State. He leads in the G5 in targets, yards, receptions, touchdowns. He's the do-it-all guy. He is #him. We've got number 2, maybe a name that's sneaking up on people.
Had a monster week
Ross.
this week. Monster week.
Devontae Ross, Troy, second in the G5 in touchdowns with 6. He leads the 2020 guys in yards after reception with 9.3. So now, do you think that's sustainable or not? Up to you. But that's Devontae Ross, a name that just pops up here. I also looked up Western Michigan does play at Marshall, so that should be a good one. Number 3, Luke Wysong, New Mexico. He has the least yards after catch of this 2020 group, guys, with 3.5. So he's getting, these 6 receptions a game at least, and then, falling down with them. So, if you're looking, again, for college fantasy football, Luke Wysong, a nice, steady guy to have. Then we've got Cade McDonald, Miami of Ohio at number 4. Ken Robinson, App State at number 5. Again, number 5 still hasn't got those touchdowns yet. Wait till he's just gonna have it coming out. I sure hope so. And just solid wide receiver. Jamal Pritchett, South Alabama, comes in at number 6. Number 7, Pofilo Ashlock at Hawaii. Number 8, Camden Benjamin Tulsa. He leads this G5 2020 group in average depth of target with 13.6. So he's getting you the yardage. They're coming in big chunks. Also does great in the return game, if you haven't noticed. Got Sean Atkins, South Florida. He has the second lowest of the 2020 guys in ADOT with 6.4. But hopefully he can get his 1,000 yards and get back-to-back 1,000 yards. He is, give me a quick second.
Well, he's chasing the all-time single season records. Or
so
all-time
he's averaging 70
career records.
So he's averaging 72.25 yards per game. Also still looking for his first touchdown of the season. Dante Wright, Temple, who's last, he's got an ADOT of 6.3, but who is last? And that's Coleman Owen out of Ohio. He has the least amount of targets of this 2020 group with 8. Yeah, let's hear.
See if things step up, can improve for him when Parker Navarro gets back.
So, like I said, Dante Wright. Actually, no, I got that wrong. Dante Wright has the lowest of this 2020 group in average depth of target with 6.3. Coleman Owen actually pretty good there at 10.3, what you want, but he has the least amount of targets. Part of that is, Parker Navarro was out this last week. I'll see if he's able to come back and play for the Bobcats. But yeah, Coleman Owen, a guy to know. Tight ends. Nothing really changed here, except for our number 4, Grayson Barnes from last week. So Harold Fannin, Junior, Bowling Green, he's getting you 11 targets per game, 8 receptions. Number 2, Tanner Kozoil, Ball State, 8 targets per game, 6 receptions per game. Least in yards after the catch with 3.4, so he's catching it falling down. Got Holden Willis, Middle Tennessee. He's averaging you 6 targets, 4 receptions. And then Grayson Barnes, Northern Illinois, 6 targets, 4 receptions. He's got a 9.2 average depth of target, which leads this group. And then Dorian Fleming, Georgia State, 6 targets and 3 receptions. When it comes to the tight ends, we talked about it a little bit last week. We've got Harold Fans just at the top, Tanner Kozoil just a little bit below, and then it's like this group of 6 where you've got Holden, Willis, Fleming, and Barnes, and then it's like Colin Weber. They're at 5, which they're on their third string quarterback. They're at Charlotte, and then it's like 4 targets. So then it's what can you do with those 4 targets? And there's this big group of guys. So really, this is the creme de la creme so far this year. Justice, what do we got for defensive guys?
All right. Well, like we said, we're splitting it out, the defensive line into defensive ends and D tackles. And we look at the havoc rate. Havoc rate includes sacks, pressures, quarterback hits, third and fourth down stops. So, hey, these guys are like the name implies, causing havoc for the opposing offenses. Number 1 this week is Desmond Little from UAB. Havoc rate of 0.18 or 18%. That's the third week in a row for Desmond Little on this list, and he ranks 3rd in total QB pressures with 14. We actually have a tie for first. Tied with him is defensive end Bradley Weaver from Ohio, also with a havoc rate of 0.18 or 18%. This is his debut on the list this week, and he ranks 1st in quarterback pressures among the G5 with 18 quarterback pressures. Number 3, the only guy on this list that has been on this list every single week, and that's Mike Green from Marshall. Had another sack, another good game against the Ohio State Buckeyes. The kid's a beast, man. He's going to be playing on Sundays, I think. But he has a havoc rate of 17%. Like I said, he's made the list all 4 weeks, and he ranks 1st in sacks with 5. Coming in tied for 3rd, Cameron Olds from Kent State, also with a havoc rate of 17%. It's his 3rd week in the row on this list, and he ranks 5th in sacks with 3 sacks. And then also tied with Mike Green and Cameron Olds with a havoc rate of 17% is defensive end Cameron Stewart from Temple. He's made this list two weeks so far, and he ranks 2nd in the G5 in tackles for loss with 4. Moving over to the defensive tackle. So these are going to be some guys. Well, one of them we talked about. He made our list when we had them combined in 1 week. But first up is defensive tackle Ezra Viamalo, Hawaii, havoc rate of 16%. He ranks 1st among defensive tackles in tackles for loss with 5. Number 2, Hosea Wheeler, Western Kentucky, a havoc rate of 12%. He ranks 5th in tackles per game among defensive tackles with 4. Number also tied with Hosea is Peyton Zadroik from Air Force, havoc rate of 12%. He ranks 2nd in sacks among defensive tackles with 2. And then coming in at number 4, we got 2 guys tied here at number 4. Defensive tackle Deonta Johnson, East Carolina. He is the one guy that made our list 1 week when we were at a combined. Havoc rate of 11%. He ranks 2nd among defensive tackles and tackles for loss with 4. And then tied with Deonta is defensive tackle Dylan Shelton, Eastern Michigan. Havoc rate of 11%. And he ranks 15th in total pressures among defensive tackles with 6 total pressures. Moving over to the linebackers, we have one new face this week, and then the order kind of changed around a little bit. Sean Dolak moves up to number 1 with that huge week, 13 tackles per game. It's the 2nd week in a row on this list, and he ranks 1st in stops. So stops is a stat that's getting 3rd or 4th down stops when the offense goes for it. And Sean Dolak ranks 1st among linebackers with 32 stops. That's just like you just said, think about that. That's pretty freaking impressive, right? Through 4 games, the guys, that's, I don't know, was it 6 a game, something like that, 7 a game. But yeah, super impressive. Number 2 and new to the list, first time appearing on the backs of his 20 tackle game is Colin Ramos from Navy, averaging 12 tackles per game. He ranks 5th in total quarterback pressures among linebackers with 5. Coming in at number 3 is linebacker Dorian Hopkins from UTEP, 11.25 tackles per game. He ranks 5th in the G5 in stops with 20, and he has made the list every single week. He is one of 2 linebackers that's been on this list every week. The other linebacker that's been on the list every week is tied for 4th, Jordan Pollard, San Jose State, 10 tackles a game. He ranks 2nd in tackles for loss with 6. And then rounding out this group tied for 4th for the 2nd week in a row, he makes the list. Trevion Barnes, Florida International, 10 tackles per game, and he ranks 5th in stops with 20. So, these guys aren't only racking up tackles, they're racking up tackles when they matter on 3rd and 4th down. So kudos to these linebackers. All right, moving over to defensive backs, and we split those guys out. We're going to start off with the cornerbacks, and this is adjusted net yards against per coverage snap. So these are the guys kind of locking folks down when they're in coverage. Number 1 is Colby Dempsey from UAB with an adjusted net yards against of negative 0.5. Remember, I tell you, the top NFL guys are around 3, and these guys are putting up negative numbers, which is just awesome. And even more awesome, Colby Dempsey's quarterback rating against 0.0. So he's played at least 120 snaps. That's kind of the minimum I use for the stat. And so when you're targeting Colby Dempsey, that tells me like you're not completing the passes. So that's about as locked down as you can get, right? Next up, we talked about this guy on our Worker Bee series. When we interviewed Coach, he warned quarterbacks about coming to McDoom Island, and that is certainly coming to fruition this year. Matthew McDoom, Coastal Carolina, adjusted net yard against of negative 0.3, and he too has a quarterback rating against of 0.0. So definitely McDoom Island is not a place you want to visit if you're a quarterback and you want to have some success. Next up, Christian Bodner, Liberty, adjusted net yards against of negative 0.27. He has 2 pass breakups on the year, which ranks 21st among cornerbacks. Next is Rashawn Pleasant from Tulane, a negative 0.26 adjusted net yards against, and he's one of the top tacklers from the cornerback position, averaging 3.25 tackles per game. And then rounding out this list at number 5 is DJ Harvey from San Jose State with an adjusted net yards against of negative 0.15, and he has a quarterback rating against of 21. So, these cornerbacks are the ones getting it done on a weekly basis and, making life miserable for the opposing offense and the quarterbacks. Now, moving over to the safeties. Number 1, I finally get to talk about an Old Dominion guy, Jerron Manning. Number 1, he's tops in this stats among all defensive backs with a negative 1.30 yards against. He's averaging 7 tackles per game. The kid's a beast, man. He is awesome. I'm not wearing it. I should have put it on. He has an NIL T-shirt. I have it. It's kind of Michael Jordan-esque. It says J-Man. It has him kind of skying up, catching a football, intercepting a football, I should say, with the number 5. It's a pretty cool shirt. So if you're interested in supporting Jerron Manning and his NIL, let me know. I'll be happy to get you the link where you too can get you a J-Man T-shirt. Number 2 on the list. This guy is someone near and dear to my heart. I guess 4 years ago now it was. He had a breakout freshman year at Arkansas, was phenomenal, and then injuries hit. He kind of bounced around to a couple different places, was never able to get healthy. He was at Texas last year, just couldn't get healthy. And this offseason, he transferred to UNLV, and he is once again playing lights out, and that's Jalen Catalon. He has an adjusted net yards against of negative 0.75. He is first in the G5 interceptions with 3. So just happy to see Jalen finally be healthy and show everyone that talent that we saw his freshman year at Arkansas. A little bit of a shocker here. We got 2 UNLV guys. We've talked about that UNLV defense. Jackson Woodard, the linebackers played phenomenal, but they got 2 defensive backs, 2 safeties that have made our top 5 list. The second is Jonathan Baldwin with an adjusted net yards against of negative 0.58. And he has a quarterback rating against of 6.3. Moving on to number 4, Kenyatta Watson II from Georgia State, adjusted net yards against of negative 0.34 and a quarterback rating against of 18.10. He is a transfer, I believe, from Georgia Tech. He's a big part of that Georgia State defense. And then rounding us out at number 5 is safety Wydett Williams Jr. from UL Monroe, an adjusted net yards against of negative 0.33. And he ranks second in the G5 interceptions with 2. And that's going to round out our 2020 guys. So now we're going to move on to the pure fantasy portion of our college fantasy portion of our show. And that's the waiver wire honey. And this week, first up is the quarterbacks. I want to. There's a couple of names I feel like, or 3 names that I kind of want to like highlight. These are the premier guys available in your league. Blake Horvath was Luke's Player of the Week. He has put up 2 phenomenal weeks: 63 points against Memphis this week, 38 points against Temple the previous week, 7 rushing touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. He's putting up numbers. He's not just doing it rushing. He's doing some passing as well. Obviously, most of his damage is coming with his legs. But man, Blake Horvath should be a hot addition on the waiver wire this week. The next guy, I'm not going to say too much because Luke waxed poetic about him on the 2020 list, and that's San Jose State Emmett Brown. He is only 15% owned. He is a 2020 guy. He was the number 1 2020 guy for quarterbacks, and so enough said on Emmett Brown. He should not be 15% owned. And then the third guy I kind of feel like kind of an elite option who just had a monster week this week. Alonzo Barnett III, James Madison, only 9% owned. He put up 70 points against 70-plus points this week against North Carolina. He is a dual threat, and he is going to – I'm willing to bet that we're not going to be talking about Alonzo Barnett on this show next week. He's going to go above that 30% threshold. If you miss out on those top 3 guys, then the rest of these guys are certainly good plays. Tyler Huff quietly has been putting up some pretty good numbers there for Jacksonville State. He is only 7% owned. He's put up 25, 28, and 24 points in the last 3 games. He is also a dual threat. Certainly looks like he's kind of earned that job to lead that Jacksonville State offense as someone that can be pretty productive for you. And then the last guy on this particular slide, I'm not going to say too much about him because he's also a 2020 guy, and that's Christian Veillere from Georgia State. All right, moving on to the rest of the quarterbacks here. Mikey Keene, Fresno State, only 25% owned. Just kind of a solid floor guy, right? He's not generally going to get you 30 plus points a week, but he's probably going to get you 20 to 22 points a week. Really good floor there for Mikey Keene. Next up, JC French, Georgia Southern, 26% owned. He is in a good offense that is now off to Sun Belt play. Looking for a big week this week in that big rivalry game for JC French against Georgia State. Both of those quarterbacks featured in our waiver wire this week. Next up, Brendan Lewis, Nevada, only 22% owned. He is a dual threat. He has a good floor, and you know what? Now we're into conference play. We shouldn't see too many more really tough matchups for Lewis, and so look for Lewis to kind of, if you need some help, you can do a lot worse than Brendan Lewis. Dual threat, and getting you that 20 to 22 points per game. Next up, another Service Academy quarterback, another triple option guy, Bryson Daly, Army, 6% owned. He's averaging 27.8 points. He has 5 rushing touchdowns and 340 yards rushing in the last 3 games. Certainly getting it done with his legs for his fantasy owners. And then rounding out our quarterbacks is Matt Sluka, UNLV, 26% owned. He's a dual threat, but he's really, like Luke alluded to earlier, much more of a rushing threat. We haven't really seen him have a super big game yet, but maybe that's to come. The last 3 weeks, he's put up 19, 31, and 14 points. So again, another solid floor guy with some rushing upside if you need that for your fantasy teams. Now we're going to go over to the running backs and Luke.
All right. Now, first of all, we got 84 of you watching us on X. Want some more likes and retweets. Ben, Brett, Robbie, Hollywood, thank you for the likes. Thank you for any retweets. Appreciate it. Let's get into the running backs. We've got running backs and wide receiver Cam Thomas. Again, if you're in PPR, getting you some receptions. He is at University of Texas, El Paso, UTEP, 13% owned. He eats in that passing game, getting 5 to 8 receptions per game and 70 to 90 yards per game. Granted, he only had 46 yards against Colorado State this week on a bye this week, but a name to know. I am tempering my expectations with UTEP, just not hitting on all cylinders, kind of like I thought they would this year. I mean, I wasn't expecting great things, but I did expect a little bit better. But Cam Thomas, a name to know. Rasul Faison, Utah State, 8% owned. He's in that 2020 group, guys. He's getting 18 touches per game and 101 yards per game. A guy that I feel like you can grab off the waivers and use if needed. You got Rajay Harris, East Carolina, 15% owned, 13.4 points per game, averaging 20.3 touches per game. I mean, it's been a slight decrease the last couple weeks, but again, a name to know nonetheless. Then we've got George Pettaway, JMU, 16%. I mentioned Ayo Adeyi, been hurt. His attempts go 8, 10, 16. He's getting 2 targets, 5 targets, and 2 targets, and he's had anywhere between 90 and 120 yards of the last 2 games. Freddie Brock, Georgia State, 16%. He's 22nd in the G5 with touches per game with 14 and 23rd in the G5 in yards per game with 76. If you need a guy, Freddie Brock is a name to know. Running back, Seth McGowan, New Mexico State, 19%. Justice, you want to hit the slide? Getting 11 to 15 carries a week, 50 to 90 yards. He looks like the most productive running back for New Mexico State, 12.9 points per game currently. Running back Jalen John, UMass, 2%. Not super productive, but still the lead back for UMass and has some involvement in the passing game, 11.1 points per game. Put Floyd Chalk San Jose on there, 23%. He's getting 12 touches, 64 yards per game. All I can say is getting scoring opportunities. I mean, granted, they're mostly passing it when they're down there, but hey, they're putting up a large number, and he's giving you an opportunity. That's all you can ask sometimes. Floyd Chalk, 23% owned. He was a lot more owned. People dropped him. It's like, hey, I don't know when to start Floyd Chalk, but he's had 2 touchdowns last week. Then you've got how do you say Eli's last name?
Heidenreich.
Eli Heidenreich, Navy, 15% owned, 21.6 points per game. He's got 4 receptions in the last 3 games and a touchdown in each game of the season. His fantasy point totals the last 3 weeks, 24.1, 19.8, 20.9. I mean, dare I say you want Service Academy guys?
I think the thing that's scary with Eli, right, is he's not getting a lot of volume, right? But
Right.
But he is super productive, man. Like, obviously,
I mean, if
like
you're looking for a running back, I
yeah,
mean, getting a
absolutely.
chance.
Absolutely. And like, obviously, you'd much rather have him in the best ball league where you don't have to pick when to start him because of that lack of volume. But man, like, running backs in all leagues, just like, I don't care if you play in the NFL, college, it doesn't matter. Running back is very thin. And so, a lot of these guys, like, you can say, well, Jalen John, for instance, right? Like, you're like, what am I going to do with a Jalen John? Well, you might be desperate for a running back one week, and he can be a bye week fill in. And so we're not telling you to go drop Ashton Jeanty and add Jalen John. We're just trying to give you guys some options because running backs, I know in my leagues, I don't know about you, Luke, but running backs are super, super thin. And like, they are getting scooped up pretty much every single week. And so, these most of these guys are rostered in my leagues. And so, Jalen John might not be, but these are the kind of guys, that Luke and I are looking at when we are making decisions. And so just trying to help you guys out with some running back selections just because the position is just so scarce.
And I don't think we mentioned it before, but we're looking at guys who are owned in 30% or less in leagues. So widely available in many leagues.
All right, let's move over to the wide receivers. And we got Dante Wright at Temple. He's a 2020 guy, so I don't want to say too much, but 26% owned, over 20 points the last 3 weeks. And, Temple's probably going to always give him a good game script where they're going to be throwing the ball around a lot. They're going to be generally playing from behind. And so a good game script for the wide receiver one for Temple. Next is Ted Hurst, only 4% owned. He was Luke's player of the week last week. I guess the maybe because he was on a bye, his ownership didn't go up too much this past week. But the last 2 weeks, he has 31 points and 20 points. So look for big things from Ted Hurst this week against Georgia Southern in that rivalry game. Next up, another guy I'm not going to spend too much time on. He is a 2020 guy. Cade McDonald, Miami, Ohio, 25% owned. Brett Gabbert's number one target. Should absolutely be owned in leagues. Junior Vanderross at Toledo, 13% owned. He's averaging 16 points per game. He is a good floor option if you're looking for someone to kind of be steady for you. Wide receiver Elijah Metcalf. Marshall has really kind of come on strong here the last 2 weeks. Only 15% owned. He put up 20 points this week against Ohio State. So look for him to kind of get going here as they enter conference play. Coleman Owen is another guy that's a 2020 guy, so not going to spend too much time on him. 17% owned. Orrin Singleton, Eastern Michigan, 3% owned. The last 2 weeks, he's been a target hog with 11 and 10 targets, only 3% owned, so available in most leagues. Next up, Cam Shanks at UAB, only 3% owned, 13.9 points a week. He has a good floor for you if you are in a PPR league. And then these
or
last
if anybody
two,
with any return yards, he gets you some good return yards too.
Absolutely. Dean Patterson, Florida International. He's kind of been warming up the last 2 weeks. He's got 25 points and 16 points the last 2 weeks, only 1% owned. Kind of interested to see if he can, kind of grow into that wide receiver one role that we kind of expected there for the Panthers, the wide receiver one for Keon Jenkins. And then this next one kind of surprises me because this dude's put up some pretty good points, and he's getting ready to start conference play, and that's Adrian Norton from Akron. Only 2% owned. He's put up 14-plus points in the last 3 weeks, and Maction getting ready to start. Sign me up for some Adrian Norton. Moving on to the receivers, to the tight ends, and back to Luke.
All right, so we've got some names that I don't have pictures of here, but they're in the 2020 group, and they're available in a large amount of leagues. So this is our podcast. We can do whatever we want. We said it's going to be 30% or
they're
less
slightly
owned.
above that 30% threshold.
We got Tanner Kozoil, Ball State, 34% owned, 17.7 points per game. He's got targets of 7, 8, 11 the last 3 weeks. He had 26.2 points for Central Michigan. Grayson Barnes, Northern Illinois, 31% owned. He's averaging 10 points per game. Dorian Fleming, Georgia State, 12% owned, 11.5 points per game. Targets the last 3 have been 5, 6, and 9. So, again, those guys are in our 2020 group, and they're available on your waivers. Grayson Barnes, Tanner Kozoil. I broke, the rule of less than 30, but they could be out on your waivers. Now let's get to the guys who are definitely under that 30%. You got Jackson Cannon, San Jose State, 2% owned, 4.5 targets, 2 receptions per game. Why are we bringing up Jackson? Well, I mean, his 32 yards per game, he's got an 8 out of 10.6. With how much San Jose tosses it around, granted, he's only getting 4.5 targets, only those 2 receptions, but hey, he could luck into a touchdown. Sometimes that's all you're looking for.
The problem with Jackson is he's on or off. Like he's like 1 week he's not doing anything, the next week he's getting a lot of targets, the next week he's not doing anything, and then he gets a lot of targets again. He's not super consistent, not yet anyway.
They got Colin Weber, who's been consistent until this last week. Again, they were on their 3rd string quarterback, so that could play into it. He's at Charlotte, 3% owned. Again, on their 3rd string quarterback. He had a 0 burger last week, but he's averaging still 5 targets, 3 receptions, and 35 yards with a 0 burger last week. Eli Wilson, App State, 16%. He's just a steady performer, gets you about 4 targets, 30 yards. He only had 1 target last week. App State just played like booty, but he's getting you 4 targets, 30 yards. Maybe you can look into a touchdown. And then this is probably the guy that we need to know about. Justice, you're a big fan. Anthony Torres.
I'm a big fan of Anthony Torres, yeah.
6% owned. He scored a touchdown in 3 of 4 weeks. He leads the G5 in touchdowns with the tight ends with 4. If you're looking for something, I know touchdowns aren't sticky, but hey, Anthony Torres, a great name to pick up on waivers.
I'm probably 4% of that 6%. he was someone I was high on the preseason, and especially if I waited on tight ends and drafts, Anthony Torres was someone that was on my list to pick to draft. So I own a lot of Anthony Torres.
All right. And then to round it out, Jacob Newell, Akron, 1% owned. He's averaging 4.7 targets and 31 yards. So a pretty good number there. And that's going to wrap it up for our tight ends and our waiver wire. Come back and join us next week as we discuss what happened in week 4 or what happened in week 5, as well as we look forward to week 6 of the 2024 season. And as always, bring you up to date on all the latest news and the happenings in the world of G5 college football. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're watching us on X, give us a retweet, a like, a follow. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please subscribe and leave those 5-star ratings and review. Thank you all for your support. Until the next time, we are the G5 Hive.